Hey, what's going on, Poly 100 students? Today we have a really great video that is kind of a pastiche of a couple different topics. Our TA Megan has prepared a number of different sort of presentations about campaigns and about voting at UMBC, and so we're going to hear from a couple of different voices in this video about ways that individual students, former UMBC students, have gotten involved in political campaigns, and then also Megan's going to tell us a little bit more about voting as a UMBC student. So I hope you enjoy these videos, and I hope that they're useful to you as we gear up towards Election Day.
All right, Poly 100. So next we are going to hear from two UMBC alums, very proud alums of Poly 100 as well, sitting in the seats you would have been in. And first we'll meet Julia. She's actually currently a campaign organizer, field organizer right now, even amidst the COVID-19 pandemic.
Hi, my name's Julia, and I work for the Nevada Democratic Party. This is some of the stuff I've been doing as an organizer. This is my virtual office where I do most of my work for the Nevada Democratic Party. Currently, we're working on confirming people for our Get Out the Early Vote events. Early voting in Nevada begins on the 17th, and a lot of people in Nevada vote early. It's very important that we reach people right now because early voting is very important to Nevada's success. This is our voter protection hotline. These are the important dates we have. And this is our acronym for finding out information about voters.
All right, and next we have Felix, another proud UMBC alum, talking a little bit about his experience in local and state politics. And also, here's your finally a sneak peek preview of that micro-targeting we talked about a little bit earlier.
Hello, everyone. My name is Felix, and I'm a Howard County resident and a UMBC alum. Megan asked me to put together a little video about past campaign experience that I could share with your Poly 100 class. So over the last 5 years, I've worked on several local and state-level political campaigns in the state of Maryland. So I've done a little bit of field work, which involves direct voter contact and get out the vote operations, as well as some political communications and political fundraising work. So I would say at their root, political campaigns are about sharing a candidate's message and vision with people in a broader effort to earn their votes and win an election. As a result, no matter what type of work you're doing on the campaign, it really comes down to the people. So campaigns often center on reaching out to voters who identify with your candidate's message. So this is often done through canvassing, which is basically door knocking, and phone banking, which is phone calls to voters. And this basically is done to reach out to thousands of voters, sometimes millions, that you need to win your campaign. So campaigns are also about building relationships with community members and hopefully inspiring people to volunteer on your campaign or to donate. These volunteers that help out on the campaign are really crucial to campaigns' winning strategy because no amount of staff will do it alone. You need to have community support in order for your campaign to win. So campaigns are also about communicating a candidate's vision and policy goals to a broad number of voters in the hopes that the voters will resonate with your message and agree on your policies, and then ultimately vote for you, which is what you need to win. So lastly, I would say campaigns are often about the details. So I once worked with a candidate who, every time that they knocked on a door and talked to a voter, they would make sure they took a note about the types of pets or animals that they had at home. And then later on, weeks later, the candidate would follow up with those voters and share information about animal abuse legislation that they'd been working on. And it might seem like a small detail, but that kind of detailed messaging really resonates with voters, and it helps often propel a winning campaign forward and inspire people to vote for a candidate. So if you ever have the opportunity to work on a campaign, I highly encourage it. As a young political science graduate, the work was not easy, but it was incredibly rewarding. And it's just a fun experience. But campaigns are really a critical part of the political process. And it really provides us with the opportunity to live up to our democratic ideals. So thank you, and good luck with your class.
I am so thankful that we were able to get Julia and Felix and hear their points of view. Again, Poly 100, I hope this was an informative experience for you, but also don't forget those key terms. Those will be incredibly important, especially this idea of micro-targeting. And the experience Felix is talking about, I'll go ahead and share a little bit about what was happening there. That was actually done by the current Senator Clarence Lamb, who actually represents UMBC, District 12. He represents UMBC in Annapolis, in our state capital. And he, in addition to collecting if the household had any animals or any pets, he would send out a mailer with a picture of himself, his fiancée, and their dog, and one of their other pets, I believe, and then would later go on to actually introduce a bill ending cosmetic testing on animals. So micro-targeting is this new wave of the game. So keep your eyes posted for all that is going to be happening in the next few weeks. Lots to happen, and remember, democracy is at stake when we go to the polls, regardless of who you're voting for. People have died for this right to vote. Go out and exercise it. Thanks very much, UMBC, Poly 100. Take care. Hello, Poly 100. I hope you all are staying safe and taking some time to rest after your midterm. If you can believe it, we're almost through October already, and here we are less than a week away from the election. All right, so there's no better time to talk about voting behavior than this week. All right, we've established a lot of principles about voting in the past few weeks, right, that it is central to the democratic process. Now, I want to give a full disclaimer that every topic you've been studying each week can actually go on and become a full course at UMBC. So there are courses about law, like as we talked about in the Supreme Court. There are courses about the presidents, there are courses about lobbying, there are courses about the Constitution, and there are also courses about voting behavior. Full disclosure, Dr. Anson is typically the one who leads that effort, and that's where I get a lot of my own knowledge from. So if this is something that interests you, don't worry if we haven't dived deep enough during this video. Plenty of opportunity for you to come back and learn a bit more. But as much as we all want to be cynical about the electoral process generally, about big money in politics, gerrymandering, fraud, voter suppression, etc., we could list issues for days. Voter behavior is incredibly important, understanding the why people vote. Now, what we're going to actually do today is talk about UMBC students voting. So UMBC does vote, and it does excellent with voting. All right. Now, I think it's a bit ironic for me to put this photo up on the first slide. This is actually a photo from the Stamp Student Union. And if you're somewhat familiar with our other universities in Maryland, this is actually a polling place at the University of Maryland, College Park, one of the many Maryland universities that has a polling location on campus. We'll go into that a bit later about how that does actually affect voting behavior. Some of the literature proves it, and some efforts that you could get involved in should you be interested in getting a polling place at UMBC. All right. Now, to begin, UMBC is no stranger to winning awards, right? The chess team always being ranked as an up-and-coming school on numerous lists. The Cinderella moment from the basketball team, right? The number 16 seed UMBC, that was us, beating the number 1 UVA. That was just a fabulous moment if you were around. If not, be sure to look it up. Right, no stranger to winning awards, but we've also won awards for voting, which I think is one of the most UMBC things for us to actually do. UMBC won a gold award from the All-In Campus Democracy Challenge for its 113% increase in student voter turnout during the 2018 election. Right, that is historic. let me give you some figures from the 2016 presidential election. This is just unbelievable. In 2016, 85% of UMBC students were registered to vote. 85%. 75% of those students voted in the 2016 presidential election. This is phenomenal to think about it, because we're going to compare it to the national average. Now, when we consider the nationwide voting population, it's called the VAP, the voting age population, people who are 18 years and older and who can vote. 55% of them voted nationwide. 55% is about the voter turnout that we estimate, 55, 55.7. The numbers go back and forth, versus the 75% of the UMBC community members who voted. That is absolutely fantastic, right? It's incredibly impressive, because when we think about the people who are voting as college students, they're new voters, right? Not only are they young, most likely just turned 18, but they're also new to the idea of voting, right? They're not used to going in and figuring out how to register to vote, how to request a mail-in ballot, or how to get to their polling location. So creating a campus climate that will demonstrate the importance of voting and is removing those barriers is incredibly important in the end. And even thinking more recently in the 2018 midterm election, which some of you might have been here for, voter turnout among 18 to 29-year-olds went up from 20% in 2014 to 36% in 2018. So we are seeing increasing trends over the years from this college age portion of our population. This is incredibly, just absolutely fantastic. And I'll tell you why. When we think about voting behavior, a good way to think about it is as a habit, right? The literature, what you'll be reading, what you'll be studying, it's going to talk about people get to the polls if they are concerned about the outcome. They feel like they can make a difference. They have an affinity or an identity with a certain political party. They've been contacted by a candidate. But a really important cause of political action is this idea of habit. And a lot of the literature is going to tell us that if somebody votes once, that will increase the likelihood that they'll go to the polls again in the future. So the impact that college students have on their future voting habits is so incredibly important. So when we think about this, and the literature and the hypotheses that have been confirmed saying voting is habit forming, let's talk about a recent measure in Maryland that failed, but would have been really pivotal to increasing student voter turnout, right? So some next steps UMBC could take to really reach full 100% voter registration, right? 100%, even though we're doing so well in all these rankings here, we want 100% voter registration and turnout, ideally. All right, so in the 2020 Maryland General Assembly, so just this year, Senator Clarence Lamb is the gentleman you see at the stand there. And fun fact, he also happens to be, drum roll and extra credit points. Just kidding, I can't give extra credit, but if I could, I would for this question, because Senator Clarence Lamb is actually UMBC's representative to Annapolis. And he will be here after the election, middle of November. I'll be sure to keep everybody posted on that. Senator Clarence Lamb led this bill with Delegate Eric Ludke. All right, that is the gentleman on the right-hand shoulder of Senator Lamb. They introduced this bill essentially recognizing the power of college students and the importance that they have to democracy generally. All right, so this bill would have required public and private universities with 4,500 or more students, meaning undergraduate and graduate students, to have a polling location on campus. All right. It would also require community colleges and the public universities to designate a staff member as the student voting coordinator. And that person would be tasked with creating a student voting plan. Now, it was introduced, and as many bills happen, It also failed. So typically when you introduce a bill during session, it is introduced 2 or 3 times before it passes out of committee. Harking back to our lectures on Congress, the state assembly follows the same structure. Typically dies in committee the first or second time that it's introduced, and after that it is taken onto the floor for a vote. This would have been an incredibly transformational bill, all right? However, there was a good bit of opposition, one coming from a delegate out of Allegheny County, which is in Western Maryland, saying, but senior citizens have more registered voters than college students. So by that logic, we should be putting a polling location right next to or inside of senior centers. And there was actually some lobbying efforts as well from the Independent Association of Colleges in Maryland. And they were really concerned with the infrastructure behind putting polling places on campus. So things like parking, getting permits, a lot of really minute details that would have had to been solved in the nutty parts of the policy. But all that to say, it failed. If it is of interest to you, if you believe UMBC should have a polling location, as many of us do, feel free to reach out to me, to Dr. Anson. We'd be definitely be more than happy to connect you with folks on campus who have an interest, kind of know how to begin the process of getting a polling location on campus. And you can really have a powerful impact. When you think about the population of UMBC, and if all of those students voted, what would that mean in state politics, in local politics, even in national politics with our close proximity to DC? A lot of power that UMBC can wield. Think about that in the next few days. And I also want to end today kind of being realistic with this poem, a Langston Hughes poem. Definitely a personal favorite, right? Affirming this dream of a society well-governed, wisely governed. To vote, despite all the skepticism about the legitimacy of the electoral system, is to embody what Hughes writes here in his poem, Let America Be America Again. Voting is not a perfect system. We all know there are many things about the electoral process that we wish we could change, but to not participate has an equal, I would argue, if not greater significance than voting does. When college students don't vote, for whatever reason it may be, they're sending a signal to local politicians, state politicians, federal politicians that, here's a big group of people in a certain area, but they're not too invested in what's happening. UMBC has shown that the opposite is quite true. We're very invested in our community, very invested in voting, but take time to think about your own voting plan, but also a step farther, how you will continue to be involved in democracy building beyond voting. Beyond casting a ballot, what can you do to get involved, right? Is it getting a polling place on UMBC's campus? Is it as simple as following politics in the news? Take time to think about it in the coming days, weeks, and months, as we all might be imagining, especially as students of political science, the election results might not come as quickly as it has previously. In a lot of ways, take hope in that. There are systems in place to ensure that democracy is, and hopefully is, fulfilled. And as always, Poly 100, the I voted sticker, a classic, my personal favorite. I know many of us won't be getting it this year as we might be voting by mail. But citation is feminist memory, a credit to all the sources, and a particularly credit to all the work UMBC does on voting, primarily coming out of the Center for Democracy and Civic Life, which I know a good bit of you are involved with, and also a lot of work and articles coming out from them as well, from David Hoffman, Romy Hubler, and Colin Sullivan, who was a former SGA president. So all that being said, I hope you take time to vote, if you can vote. And I hope you take time to realize how important it is to vote and what all this means in the greater context of what we're studying. That's all for now, Poly 100. Take care.